Good day everyone and welcome to another vlog for the Exodus 7 to 12K JV project. Now this week again was set on primarily audio in terms of the project itself, but I do have a few other things to show you guys. So first of all, I'm going to show you, well, actually play you some of the audio. Okay, so a few changes that were made is I added the bird sounds from the opening part as well as the babbling from the water. You know, the one I created by stirring the pool, over the already existing river, as well as Moses' speech. And God also helped me record some clothing movement, you know, like the clothes that ruffle in the wind or rustle, whatever. Basically, I had to add that to the opening as well, because in the opening, he's also standing in the wind. Not as heavily, but, you know, still wind. And yeah, I also added with those ruffles some extra flaps, you know, when he slams down the stick. Did 3 different ones, and this is pretty much what it sounds like.
The river's brink against thee come, and the rod which was turned into a serpent shalt thou take in thine hand, and thou shalt say unto him,
The Lord God of the Hebrews hath sent me unto thee, saying, Let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness. And behold, hitherto thou wouldest not hear. Thus saith the Lord, In this thou shalt know that I am the Lord. Behold, I will smite with the rod that is in mine hand upon the waters which are in the river, and they shall be turned to blood.
And you get the basic idea. That's very cool. So that's been added like 3 times. You can even hear that it's transitioning. So awesome. Why is this over here? Oh, goodies. Okay, that explains it. I added some water sound effects last night to the project, and it didn't add it where the timeline was, and now I see it's added it all the way over here at the back. So I'm just going to delete these quickly. Okay, this is just the dialogue where God says, say unto Aaron, and then Moses tells him to take up the rod and strike the river. Hold it out over the country's water. So we're not even going to go there. Okay, that's the stick tap. That's the heartbeat. Okay, here we have some transformation sound for the snakes, for the rods turning into snakes. So what I did was I used a mix of reverse cymbals, same as what I'm going to be playing you in a few seconds at the cloud for the magicians, and added a bit of a crackle over it. Now, what I did was I used a plastic bag, a crumpled plastic bag, shopping bag, to generate the crackle that you would hear in the fire. Unfortunately, it's a little busy, but it still does the trick in terms of this thing, because you have a stick turning into a snake. Odds are you will have some, you know, crackle type sounds in there. So it really fits. I do think that there might be a better sound for it, but I'm going to play it to you anyway. And then, of course, you would have the hissing and all that kind of stuff as well. Okay, so that's just a little tick over there. Okay, now this, I want a raging kind of fire sound, you know, small starting fire and then rage over here and then the whoosh that creates that little shockwave. So this is what the whoosh sounds like. See, it's very similar to that fireball type thing, but it's not quite the same. I do like it though. Okay, and of course I add a little bit of a whoosh to the part where he throws it. Very cool. Now this one is something that is very musically driven. It's totally based on whether I get the right music for this section. If I go for more like an Egyptian style music, which I think would be actually quite fitting. But this is for the stick taps, you know, drums that are synced to the taps. Very simple. It's not super fancy. So there would have to be something in here, and then the 4 drums, and on the 4th drum the music would start, and you would have all this kick in, you know. So anyway, getting to the cloud. So I created an extra boom. I went online looking for resources on how to create that typical trailer boom sound that you find. I'll link to an example video that has various kinds of hits and crashes and whatever for this particular thing. And the one tip I found was putting a bass drum and some other things together and just giving that like a heavy, heavy reverb, you know, a very wide reverb. And it really creates a great effect. So what I did was I used the lowest drums that AnvilStudio has available through the Windows MIDI system and added a reverb to that and just took down the highest frequencies, you know, your treble frequencies. Oh, this is also where the reverse cymbal comes in. I don't know why this reverse stream thing is here. Oh, it's the one that adds that little eerie feel to it. Okay, that's why that's there. Okay. So we have the reverse cymbals panned, so you get different sounds. And one is lower, one is higher. And of course, you get the 2 booms. One is the one that was already there that wasn't quite so prevalent. And then there was the one I made last night. So this is what the collective sounds like. Still needs a little something extra, but I really like it so far. Okay, and the whistle was turned down. We still have our wish over there. And I also added the clothing ruffle here at the beginning. So this is what that sounds like now.
See, I have made thee a god to Pharaoh, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. Thou shalt speak all that I command thee, and Aaron thy brother shall speak unto Pharaoh.
Very cool. So that is pretty much it for the sound work on Exodus this week. Doesn't look like a lot, but it sure took a lot. I have to say there's a lot of trial and error that goes into this sort of thing. Okay, so getting to the next thing. Now, generally when you have defocus, I'm just going to switch this to a lower resolution so it processes a little faster. Usually when you have a camera doing the defocus or whatever, it doesn't defocus so cleanly. Some cameras do, they really do, but not all. Some use what is known as this word over here. Not even going to go there. Let's see what it's actually supposed to be pronounced as. Okay, it's pronounced as bokeh, you know, like a bouquet of flowers. That's the way it's supposed to be pronounced as, according to Wikipedia. I'll put a link in the description. So anyway, so when a camera does it, it would have the bokeh blur, and that would kind of break up the image versus just blurring it, you know, fuzzying it up. So this would be the fast Gaussian, which is the typical blur that you would go for, and this would be what the bokeh looks like. You can see there's an immediate difference there. So I'm just going to up the blur strength to be about 2 or 3. Okay, so this is what the bokeh looks like, and this is what the normal Gaussian blur looks like. See, there's a major difference between the two. And no, it's not just intensity. You can see that the bokeh has a very sharp degradation of the image as opposed to the smooth, fuzzy, kind of soft Gaussian blur does. So this is also a creative choice, actually, in terms of whatever it is that you're working with. So this is just something I added to the defocus node. And it's very simple to add. All you need to do is you just need to duplicate your blur setup. And instead of using this typical blur node, you would just use a bokeh blur. It's truly as simple as that. The rest is identical, as you can see. You can see I use the same controls for the strength. You can see I use the same image outputs with the same mix, same masks, all of that. The only difference is the type of blur. So you have two mix setups using the same information. So if you already duplicated the mix node not the mix node, the defocus node tutorial, if you've already made the node, all you need to do is just add this if you want this, or you can replace the other one. I do caution though, the Gaussian blur, the fast Gaussian blur is a lot faster, especially on higher resolutions. So if you want speed, go for the Gaussian blur. If you want that aesthetic feel that the bokeh gives you, then use the bokeh. See, it's not so bad to pronounce. You just need to know how. Anyway, so there was another thing for this week. Now what you're looking at here is the 3D version of a little video I made this week with obviously Blender, duh. But there's someone online who has, website, channel, etc., called Remington Graphics. He held a competition this week, actually, I think it was this month, I don't know, about simplicity using a sphere, only to generate some sort of video or appealing render. And you weren't allowed to model anything extra. You were only allowed to use textures and, of course, a sphere. The challenge was specifically that you had to use a sphere and you were only allowed to use modifiers, and that you had to avoid modifiers that would add a lot of extra geometry, like the array modifier and all that kind of other stuff. So this was something I made. Unfortunately, I wasn't even close to being on time to submit it, because I only heard of it on like the last day of the competition. Or I took note of it on the last day of the competition. So this is just a little something I made for it. And this turned out to be an interesting exercise in terms of upscaling as well as frame interpolation. And because there's something wrong with the software I use to upscale it, it's like clockwork. At frame 307, it crashes. No matter what I do, frame 307, it crashes. So what happens is you often get a situation where you can easily have duplicate frames. For example, you can see over here, it's fine. Look at that. Did you see that? It jumps and then it jumps back. Hold on, let me just get there. There, you see that? That jerk over there. It's not me moving the mouse. You can see that it's not me causing it. Now, whenever a program that's supposed to process image sequences crashes so easily, this is the kind of stuff that you really have to be careful of. So I'm very glad I actually checked this out this week. Instead of getting to the final process for Exodus and finding this out when the whole thing has been processed, I'm like, oh, now I have to redo the whole thing. So yeah, I'm super thankful God showed me this with this competition little entry thing over here. So this is a 4K 3D video that's been interpolated to be 60 frames per second. As you can see, this is what the interpolation artifacts look like. But I am really pleased with the result. The best way to watch this would be in grayscale 3D, but unfortunately, yeah, actually polarized 3D would be ideal, because then you have the full color and the 3D space and all that kind of other stuff. Unfortunately, I only have red, cyan, anaglyph, and stuff like this doesn't show well in anaglyph. At least not the red and cyan. The opening is fine, but this whole cloud nebula thing at the end is too bright and too colorful. Still like it though. Amazing to think that this is just a sphere. Now, I did use a solidify modifier to create the atmosphere for the clouds, but that was the only extra geometry I added through the modifiers, not cheating, and that fades away there. So you don't really see it for the rest of the video. And this truly is all done with the same sphere. It's not fakery or whatever, using the displacement modifier, solidify modifier, textures, you name it. So anyway, I wrote about this in the post, so you guys can check that out. And I also embedded the link to the 4K 60 frame per second 3D version, so you guys can check that out as well. So interestingly enough, God actually helped me this week to get the ambient occlusion in Cycles working with Toon shading. So you can get virtually the same result in Cycles that you can get in Blender Render. Almost. There's still some issues that still need some troubleshooting. But anyway, the point is that you can get really close. I mean, really, really, really close. So what you're looking at is a Cycles result that has Toon shading, as well as soft shadows, as well as ambient occlusion. And it took 2 minutes and 11 seconds to render on the GPU, which is really long. Now, I had to be fair, to create a proper test. I had to use the same materials, the same setup, and the same scene size, etc., 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 as this one, but in Blender Render to get a fair comparison. So what you're looking at is the Cycles version, and this is the Blender Render version. First thing to note is that Blender Render has specularity controls, unlike Cycles. Cycles doesn't. Blender Render has a much easier time seeing through transparent objects, especially when it comes to the final compositing setup and all that kind of stuff, as you can see. You can also see that the reflections actually shine through quite easily. The reflections are much sharper, and in general, it just looks better. I mean, look at the reflective color over here. It's just gorgeous. It's just absolutely gorgeous. You don't see that in the Cycles one. Look at that. So flat. You can see there's a slight suggestion of color over there. I did add some light bounces. You have to, otherwise you're not going to get this glossy material to look right. You can see there's no reflection over there. It's nothing. It's dead. So the shocking part, the really, really shocking part, is that this took 45 seconds, this Blender Render version, and the Cycles one took 2 minutes and 11 seconds. The biggest reason it took 2 minutes and 11 seconds is because I had to use a higher sample count. This is a method that is very dependent on compositing, and the denoiser does not denoise your passes, unfortunately. I don't know if it's a bug in 2.79 that it doesn't denoise the passes, but it really doesn't, which causes all manner of noisiness, like in the head over here with the transparency. You can see it over here with the ambient occlusion being very noisy. It sucks having to ramp it up that high. Unfortunately, on my PC, it's not going to get faster than 45 seconds, not for this result. Not to mention the fact that I don't have specularity in Cycles. You can fake specularity by adding a glossy Toon shader, but the problem is the second you add any kind of light bounces for glossiness or whatever, the specular value becomes a reflective value instead of being specularity. I don't know how else to make it work. There is someone in the NPR group working on a shadeless Toon shader for Cycles' viewport, but he managed to get a specular look, but I haven't tried the specular value for it just yet, so I can't say if that's going to work or not. But this was interesting. I have to say, this took quite a while to set up, and I want to show you what it looks like. Okay, so here we are in Cycles. As you can see, I haven't changed the viewport color for this thing yet. It's supposed to be white, so let's just make it white. Saturation down. Okay. So what this looks like in compositing is this. Now, there are a few workarounds over here to just make the edges work, so that's not like super important to get the right look. I can also see that I use some various denoising stuff in here. But the primary thing that happens is that you have to get the diffuse color and you have to get the shadow. If you get the diffuse color and the shadow from a hard lamp, then you have this this comic style thing where I'm going to let me just show you what it looks like. I'm just going to use a low resolution, about 50%, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. Okay, so here we are back in the compositor with a quick render. So what you're going to be using when you're going for this is you're going to have to get your diffuse color, which pretty much just gives you this. As you can see, no reflectivity. And then you get your shadows that are supposed to go over that. Now, as you can see, clearly it's not denoising the pass. Let me just zoom in. It's really unfortunate, but it doesn't denoise the passes as well. So what you do is you just layer this. Get a mix node. And the diffuse color. And you just multiply it over itself. And there you go. It's as simple as that. So you have your flat Toon shading. Unfortunately, like I said, you don't have your reflectivity reflecting in this particular setup. So you would either have to put this only on your Toon layer, or you would have to find some other workaround. God hasn't given it to me yet. He just helped me to get the ambient occlusion working so far. So this is what you do first. And then, of course, you use your typical freestyle thing where you mix your background layer, which looks like this, with the strong ambient occlusion and all the kind of other light bounces and whatever. And then you mix that with your one over here using the freestyle mask, the pass 4 material thing. I put a link in the description to the basic compositing setup for breaking up the Toon stuff with the soft shadows. Just so you guys have a basic idea of how to separate the two and bring them together in the right way. Unfortunately, because the ambient occlusion works very additively in cycles, your sun lamp or whatever lamp you're using has to be brighter than your ambient occlusion for it to actually be visible. So I had to also boost the ambient occlusion like I do in Blender Render because it's just too dark. Too bright. It's just too bright. Just too dark. Oops. So again, you can see it doesn't denoise. I don't know. Again, maybe it's a bug. I don't know. I really don't know. It looks like it's supposed to denoise the passes. If you look over here, you can see diffuse, direct, indirect, lossy, direct, indirect, transmission, direct, indirect, subsurface, direct, indirect. It looks like it's supposed to denoise all that. I don't know. But anyway. So the freestyle lines only get a single sample because they don't have any solid stuff. You can't, unfortunately, use your Toon layer directly because this is what happens. You can't use this as your freestyle objects directly. It's too soft. It's too realistic. So that's why you have to use this thing first, and then you have to render your lines apart from that and put them over the render. And then, of course, you have to go through all of this drama to get it to look right. So interestingly enough, I found that the freestyle lines and all that kind of stuff don't quite merge sufficiently when it comes to the Toon shading, which is why I created, which is why I added the in-paint node as well to just fill in those gaps so that the outlines wouldn't be slightly off of the object. Because that's what happened. I could see the floor on the edge of the red monkey. It was ridiculous. So it was just because I used 4 or 5 samples for the Toon shading. So this just fixes that issue because it's still getting masked. You can see that this is what the multiply part looks like, with the shadows getting added over it. It's very artsy. I kind of like it. And then, of course, you get the lines added and it gets masked off. Simple as that. Now, ideally, the ID mask should be able to see through transparent objects like this, which would enable me to add the reflectivity of the other monkey back in here. But that did not happen, clearly. So it's just one of those things. So alternatively, you can also give this a different object index and just add it straight from the Toon section, if I can say it like that. But again, it's not what you're looking for. So as you can see, it's not a horrible thing. It's not a difficult setup. It's more trying to force something that is photorealistic to become non-photorealistic. Basically all that's all the process is about. So unfortunately, this does prove that Cycles is not, at least not for me, might be for you guys if you have a much better graphics card than I do, and other hardware. Cycles is not a practical solution for me. 2 minutes and 11 seconds as opposed to 45. It's just under 3 times slower than Blender Render. Plus, I have more control over the materials in Blender Render. So I'll be sticking with that, at least until Eevee gets its stuff together. But yeah. Getting back to today's work, though, I want to show you guys how I typically process sound effects. Because obviously I have to record all this stuff. Everything that you hear in Exodus has been recorded. This is all Foley and MIDI and all that kind of stuff. So what I want to show you guys is a little sound effect that I still want to record, which is from here where he opens up his wings like that and brings them back in. So this would pretty much be an umbrella, you know. I've got a fairly big umbrella which should suffice for this. So that's what I'm going to be recording right now. I'm going to take you guys through the process. So I'm just going to save that. And let's see how long this particular thing is. So it goes for 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's fairly short. We should be able to get it done with basically just an open and a close. We can add a little bit of a shake, you know, just record a shaking of it. But that should pretty much do it. Okay, so I'm just going to go around. I've already got my phone set up and I've already got this umbrellas, this umbrella. I've already got the umbrella set aside. So let's do this. Now, unfortunately, I don't have like the typical Foley system that you would have at Sony. But it doesn't matter because you don't need the setup that you would have at Sony. Sony just has to produce a lot of content really quickly, so it needs to be a little bit more organized than your average bear. So I'm going to use my phone to record like I do pretty much all the Foley I do. And okay, there we go. And let's get the umbrella. Now I'm using a tripod. It's about chest level. I'm standing. As you can hear, there's the umbrella. I just need to make sure that it's not going to make extra noise. It's got like this tag thing that keeps it closed, you know, like a typical umbrella would. Okay, that should do it. So now we want to record this type of sound. But we only need one solid one, and we want to avoid the metal sound. In other words, you don't want to let it hit the plastic at the end. You don't want that sound. So I'm going to hit record, and we're going to do a close, you know, for the coming in, and then we're going to do an opening. Okay. Oh, it's a lot of wind. I hope it doesn't interfere with the sound. So here we go. I see this thing did flap. Hold on. Let me get that back there. Maybe I should put it at the bottom. Just got a few extras there, just to make sure we got, the whole thing. Okay, so that thing you can go and put away. Perfect. Now I'm going to quickly download the files, and I'm going to show it to you guys in Audacity. Okay, so here we are in Audacity, getting ready to process. So let's see what we got. So of course this is just a click, so we just want to get rid of that. And of course there's my chatter in between, so we need to edit that out too, so I'm going to quickly remove that. Okay, remove the chatter. I just want to remove a few extra sounds that just don't sound very good. I mean, listen to this one. It's not quite it. So I just want to chuck that. Okay, so let's listen to this. This is the part where I just kind of ruffled it. Not really useful at the moment. I'll probably come back to it. I'm just looking for that opening kind of sustain, and then yeah. I kind of like this one. This is a cool one. So I'm just going to mute that. I definitely want to add some meat to work with. So I'm just going to generate some silence. About 5 seconds should be more than enough. Okay, going back. So let's listen to that. Okay, there's a little bit of a at the end there. Okay, that's gone. Okay. I want to remove a little bit of that reverb. You can do that by using some noise reduction for the very faint end over there. Feel free to copy my noise reduction settings. Okay, let's hear it. Okay, that's better. We do need to boost the sound, so I'm going to use this singing voice kind of curve. This is just the microphone profile. You guys hear it every week when I do the do the vlog. Let's add normalize it first, and then maybe compress. Yeah, let's compress a bit, just so it's a little bit more even. Okay, that's good. Okay, we can remove some of the extra parts. Let's hear that. It's good. Just want to slow it down a little bit. Or let's just see. Let's see if it's too fast. Hold on. Yeah, it's just a little bit too fast. Let's just listen to it. Yeah, it's too fast. So we can use this one on the pullback, or we can use this one for the pullback. So let's just duplicate it and slow it down. I like the fast one. Change this. Let's try the tempo. Yeah, we don't want to change the. No, let's change it. Let's let it change the pitch a little bit. So we want to make it about half the speed. It's a little intense. Let's bring this down a little bit. No, not for everything, just this one. Okay, let's hear that. Okay, that's cool. Let's change the speed again. And apply the same equalization. Let's try it. Let's try it and see what it sounds like. Okay, so here we are back in Blender. So we want it to be added there. So let's add it. A good idea is to have your waveform show so that you can see where it's supposed to start, and it's supposed to start there as to catch speed, and then we'll see it. Okay, I think it's just a little bit too... Yeah, I like that. Let's just turn down the volume a bit. Okay, now we just need to add the recoil as well. Okay, let's take this one for the recoil, or let's just listen. Yeah, I can hear that little flappy thing. Let's take this one. Sounds okay. Let's normalize it, just get that end. Noise reduction. Just so it's a little bit cleaner. Equalization. Let's go for this one first. Normalize it. And of course we need to compress it so it's a little bit more even. Compress it twice. And then we can flatten it out. It's not supposed to be a very strong sound. Let's hear it. Let me just mute over here. Okay. Okay, that's nice. Let's slow it down as well. That's funny. I think we should just keep it as is. It sounds nice. Export selected audio. And the recoil comes there. Let's add the closed flap, draw waveform. Has to start approximately there. A little bit more there. Okay, so let's see that. Let's just turn it down. This one is at 0.5, also 0.5. Okay. Let's make it even softer. I kind of like that. So there you have an umbrella opening. And that's basically how I do some Foley sounds. So I might improve on this using something like a towel or something to get a different sound, just to experiment a little bit. But this is the basic method that I use to get the sound effects that I do. Yeah, that's it. So that's it for this week. I hope you guys are able to use this knowledge. I'll put a little bit more in the post about the equipment that I use. It's really, really basic. If you have a cell phone, you can pretty much do this. So that's it. Have a great one, and God bless.